You're a British soldier at a remote mission station in South Africa. Your army just got destroyed at a place called Isandlwana. 1,300 men slaughtered in 2 hours. You didn't see it happen, but survivors are starting to trickle in with stories that sound impossible. Zulu warriors killed an entire British column, overran artillery, cut down cavalry, left almost no one alive. And now they're coming here. You're at Rorke's Drift, a small Swedish mission station near the Buffalo River. It's basically 2 buildings, a church and a storehouse, sitting in the middle of nowhere. There are about 150 of you, mostly sick and injured men from the hospital, a company of engineers, some colonial troops. Your officers are a lieutenant who's been in the army for 3 years and another who builds bridges for a living. Your commander was supposed to be here, but he rode off this morning to scout ahead. He's probably dead. Your reinforcements were supposed to arrive yesterday. They never showed up. They're probably dead too. A scout rides in at 3:15 p.m. on January 22nd, 1879. He's exhausted, his horse is lathered, and he's got news. The Zulu army is 6 miles away, 4,000 warriors. They're heading this direction. You have 2 options. Option 1, run. Try to escape across the river, through hostile territory with injured men who can barely walk. You might make it 10 miles before the Zulus catch you in the open. Then you die tired. Option 2, stay. Turn this mission station into a fortress using whatever you can find. Fight 4,000 Zulu warriors with 150 men, most of whom are wounded or sick. Hold out until help arrives. Assuming help arrives. Your commanding officer, Lieutenant John Chard, makes the call. We stay. We fight. You have 3 hours until the Zulu army gets here. 3 hours to turn a mission station with no defensive walls into something that can withstand an assault by the most effective light infantry force in Africa. 3 hours to figure out how 150 men can generate enough firepower to stop 4,000 warriors from overrunning your position. 3 hours to prepare for a battle that by every mathematical calculation you should lose. This is the story of Rorke's Drift. The battle where 150 British soldiers held a mission station against 4,000 Zulu warriors for 12 hours straight. The battle where defenders built fortifications out of mealie bags and biscuit boxes. The battle where 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded, more than any single engagement in British military history. The battle where the math said you'd die, but somehow you didn't.
To understand how Rorke's Drift became a battle at all, you need to understand what happened at Isandlwana earlier that same day. January 22nd, 1879. Isandlwana, Zululand. The British Empire is invading Zululand. Lord Chelmsford commands a column of 1,800 men, British regulars, colonial volunteers, and native auxiliaries. They're equipped with modern rifles, artillery, and the absolute confidence that comes from being the world's dominant military power. They camp at the base of a distinctive hill called Isandlwana. Chelmsford takes half his force and scouts ahead, leaving Lieutenant Colonel Henry Pauline in command of the camp with about 1,300 men. Around noon, a Zulu army of approximately 20,000 warriors attacks. The British have Martini Henry rifles, single-shot breech loaders that can fire 10 to 12 rounds per minute in practiced hands. The Zulus have assegais, short stabbing spears, shields, and incredible tactical discipline. The battle lasts 2 hours. The British line holds initially, but they spread too thin trying to defend the entire camp. The Zulus use their classic Horns of the Buffalo formation, pin the center, envelope the flanks, and when the British ammunition starts running low, the line collapses. It's a slaughter. Of the 1,300 men in camp, fewer than 60 Europeans survive. Most colonial troops and native auxiliaries are killed. Bodies are found scattered for miles. Some soldiers died trying to flee across the Buffalo River. Others died in the camp, fighting to the last round. It's the worst defeat the British Army has suffered against a technologically inferior force in decades, and it happens because British commanders underestimated Zulu military capability, overextended their forces, and failed to properly fortify their position. Lord Chelmsford returns to Isandlwana that evening and finds his camp destroyed and his men dead. It's a catastrophe. It's also a lesson. Zulu warriors are not poorly organized tribesmen. They are a professional fighting force with sophisticated tactics, iron discipline, and absolute fearlessness. But here's what matters for Rorke's drift. Not all 20,000 Zulu warriors participated in the Isandlwana attack. About 4,000 men from the Uchilwana, Utaloko, and Indelyengwe regiments were held in reserve. These warriors didn't get to fight. They didn't get to wash their spears in battle. And according to Zulu military tradition, warriors who don't participate in battle need to prove themselves before returning home. So when Prince Dabalamanzi Kampande, commanding these reserve regiments, learns there's a British post at Rorke's Drift just 10 miles away, he makes a decision. His men will attack it. King Cetshwayo had explicitly ordered his army not to cross into British territory. The king wanted a defensive war. He knew invading British land would bring the full weight of the empire down on Zululand. Prince Dabalamanzi ignores this order. His warriors need to fight. Rorke's Drift is right there. It's undermanned, it's unsupported, it's an easy target. Or so he thinks.
3:30 p.m., January 22nd, 1879. Rorke's Drift. Lieutenant John Chard is 31 years old, a royal engineer who's been in South Africa for less than 2 months. He's never commanded men in combat. His expertise is building bridges and pontoons, not fighting battles. Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead commands B Company, 2nd Battalion, 24th Regiment of Foot, the main infantry unit at Rorke's Drift. He's 33, partially deaf, and, like Chard, has never seen combat. These are your commanding officers, an engineer and a deaf infantry officer who've never fought a battle. The news that 4,000 Zulus are heading toward Rorke's Drift triggers immediate panic among some of the colonial troops. They mount their horses and ride away. About 100 men, mostly native contingent soldiers, desert immediately. They're not cowards. They saw what happened at Isandlwana. They know what's coming. They're making the rational choice to survive. That leaves roughly 150 men, 139 from B Company, 24th Foot, plus some engineers, sick and injured men from the hospital, and a handful of others. Chard and Bromhead confer quickly. Running is suicide. The Zulus are faster on foot than British soldiers carrying 60 pounds of equipment. The nearest British force is over 20 miles away. If they try to evacuate with injured men, they'll be caught in the open and massacred. Their only chance is to fortify and hold. Chard starts issuing orders. His engineering training takes over. He surveys the mission station, 2 buildings about 150 feet apart. The storehouse is stone with a thatched roof. The hospital is also stone with thatch. Between them is open ground, indefensible. The solution? Build walls. But you can't build stone walls in 3 hours, so you build walls out of whatever's available. The storehouse is full of supplies, mealie bags, 100-pound sacks of corn, biscuit boxes, wooden crates of hardtack, wagons. Chard orders everything hauled outside. Build a perimeter connecting the 2 buildings. Stack mealie bags 4 feet high to create firing positions. Use wagons to fill gaps. Create a continuous defensive wall. The men work frantically. Mealie bags weigh over 100 pounds each. They're stacking hundreds of them in the African heat while wearing wool uniforms. The work is exhausting, but everyone understands. If those walls aren't built before the Zulus arrive, you're dead. Assistant Commissary James Dalton, technically a supply officer but a former sergeant with combat experience, suggests an inner defensive line. If the outer perimeter is breached, they'll need a fallback position. Chard agrees.
They construct a second line of mealie bags bisecting the compound, connecting the storehouse to the front of the hospital. The hospital is a problem. It has multiple rooms with separate external doors and small windows. It's designed as a sick ward, not a fortress. Patients inside, many immobile from wounds or illness, can't be moved in time, so the hospital becomes part of the defensive perimeter by necessity, even though it's indefensible. Acting Assistant Surgeon James Reynolds refuses to leave the patients. Several soldiers volunteer to defend the hospital rooms. They barricade doors with furniture and mealie bags. They knock loopholes in the walls for rifle fire. It's improvised, desperate, and probably won't hold, but it's all they can do. By 4:30 p.m., rough fortifications are in place. Mealie bags form a perimeter roughly 100 yards long and 50 yards deep. The walls are 4 feet high, enough to provide cover while kneeling or lying prone. Firing steps are improvised from biscuit boxes so soldiers can shoot over the top. It's not a proper fortification. It wouldn't stop artillery. It wouldn't even slow down a determined European army with ladders and grenades. But against infantry with spears, maybe. If the defenders can maintain fire superiority, if they don't run out of ammunition, if their morale holds. At 4:30 p.m., scouts report the Zulu army approaching from the south. 4,000 warriors moving in disciplined formations. They'll arrive within the hour. Chard addresses the men. The speech is short. We stay, we fight, we hold until relief arrives. No one asks when relief will arrive. Everyone knows the answer. Maybe tomorrow, maybe never. You check your rifle. Martini Henry Mark II, single-shot breechloader, 5.77/450 caliber. You've got 70 rounds in your ammunition pouch and access to thousands more in the storehouse. Your bayonet is fixed. Your position is assigned, a section of the outer wall facing south. And then, you wait.
4:30 p.m. The Zulu army appears on the hills south of Rorke's Drift. They don't charge immediately. They advance deliberately, formations spreading out, warriors chanting. The sound carries across the valley. Thousands of voices, rhythmic and terrifying. The British soldiers at the barricade watch in silence. The Zulu force is approximately 4,000 strong, mostly from the Utula Ana and Ingli Uengwe regiments. These are veteran warriors, not young recruits. Many fought at Isandlwana that morning. They're confident, blooded, and seeking glory. But they're also tired. They've been marching and fighting all day. They're 10 miles from their base, carrying only what they wore into battle. They have no artillery, no supplies, no support. Dabulamanzi's plan is simple. Overwhelm the British position with speed and numbers. Zulu military doctrine relies on closing quickly to negate the defenders' firepower advantage. Get inside rifle range before they can reload. Then it's spears against bayonets, and the Zulus know who wins that fight. At 4:40 p.m., the first attack begins. Warriors advance in a rush toward the south wall, the section of perimeter farthest from the storehouse. This is where Chard expected them to come. The defenses here are strongest, with clear fields of fire. British soldiers hold their fire. Chard's orders: don't shoot until 400 yards. Conserve ammunition. Make every shot count. At 400 yards, company, present. 150 rifles rise to shoulders. Fire. The first volley tears into the Zulu advance. Smoke blooms along the wall. The Martini Henry is a powerful rifle. Its 577 450 round hits with tremendous force. At this range, center mass hits are lethal. Reload. Experienced soldiers can fire 10 to 12 rounds per minute with a Martini Henry. Some of B Company's men have been drilling for years. They're fast, disciplined, and accurate. The second volley fires, and the third, and the fourth. Zulu warriors fall, but others press forward. They're not running in a disorganized mob. They're advancing in their traditional formation, shields raised, moving at a steady run. The fallen are replaced by those behind. The formation absorbs casualties and keeps coming. At 200 yards, the fire becomes continuous. Individual soldiers are no longer firing in volleys. They're loading and firing as fast as possible.
The wall is a continuous line of smoke and noise. Spent cartridges pile up at the shooter's feet. The Zulus reach 100 yards, then 50, then they're at the barricade. The first warriors hit the mealie bag wall and try to climb over. British soldiers shoot them point blank. Others stab with bayonets. A Zulu warrior grabs a rifle barrel trying to pull it from the shooter's hands. A corporal shoots him in the chest and shoves him back. The fighting is hand-to-hand, desperate and brutal. But the 4-foot wall makes all the difference. The Zulus can't easily climb over while under fire. They have to expose themselves to climb, and when they do, they're shot or bayoneted. After 10 minutes of sustained fighting, the first assault breaks. The Zulus pull back, leaving dozens of bodies piled against the wall. They regroup on the hillside and prepare for another attack. The British use the lull to redistribute ammunition. Runners carry cartridge boxes from the storehouse to the defenders. Chard checks casualties. 3 wounded, none dead. The wall held. But that was just the first attack. 5 p.m. The second Zulu assault targets the northwest corner of the perimeter, the hospital. This is tactically smart. The hospital is the weakest point in the British defense. It's isolated from the main storehouse. Its walls are stone, but the roof is thatch and the windows are small. Soldiers inside are cut off from ammunition resupply and reinforcement. The attack on the hospital is ferocious. Hundreds of warriors rush the building from multiple sides simultaneously. They reach the walls before the defenders inside can generate effective fire. Zulus tear at the barricaded doors. They climb onto the roof. They try to force entry through windows. Inside, the hospital defense is fragmented. Each room is a separate battle. Private Henry Hook is defending a room with 3 patients who can't move. He's firing through a loophole knocked in the wall, but warriors are already on the roof tearing away thatch to get inside. Hook hears them above him. Thatch is falling. A spear thrusts down through the ceiling. Hook fires upward, but more warriors are coming. He makes a decision: breach the wall to the next room. He uses his bayonet to hack through the interior mud brick wall, creating a hole large enough to drag patients through. He pulls the first patient through, then the second. Behind him, Zulus are dropping through the roof into the room he just abandoned. In the next room, Private John Williams is doing the same thing, fighting off attackers while breaching walls and evacuating patients toward the center of the building. It's room-by-room retreat, each defender buying time with rifle fire while others hack through walls and drag wounded men deeper into the hospital. Surgeon Reynolds is moving through the rooms, helping carry patients who can't walk. He's not armed, medical officers don't carry weapons, but he's exposed to the same danger as everyone else. Spears thrust through windows, rifle fire from defenders fills the rooms with choking smoke. The building is on fire in places where Zulus have dropped burning thatch through the roof. Private Robert Jones and Private William Jones, no relation, are defending the final room, a small corner ward where 6 patients are huddled. The door is barricaded, but warriors are smashing through. Robert Jones fires his last round, then uses his rifle as a club. Warriors break through. Jones fights hand-to-hand with his bayonet, stabbing one attacker, then another, trying to keep them away from the patients. William Jones breaks through the exterior wall, creating an escape hole to the outside. The patients who can move crawl through. Those who can't are dragged. Some don't make it. Private Adams, bedridden with fever, is killed by assegai as warriors flood the room. Outside the hospital, the scene is chaos. Defenders who escaped are fighting their way back to the main perimeter. Zulus are inside the building now, room by room. The British fall back to the inner defensive line, the second wall Chard ordered built. At 5:30 p.m., Chard makes the call: abandon the hospital, pull everyone back behind the inner barricade. Soldiers help the last defenders over the inner wall. Private Hook is the last man out, still firing at pursuing warriors. He vaults the mealie bags with Zulus right behind him. Other soldiers shoot over his head, dropping the closest attackers. The hospital is lost. Warriors are inside, looting, setting fires. The thatched roof goes up in flames, lighting the battlefield in flickering orange. But most of the patients were evacuated. Of the 35 men in the hospital when the battle started, 20 made it alive alone. That's not a victory, but it's not the massacre it could have been. The defensive perimeter has shrunk. The British now hold only the area around the storehouse, roughly 50 yards by 30 yards. They're more concentrated, which means better fire concentration, but they've lost ground, and it's only 5:30 p.m. Hours of darkness remain. What happens next is not heroism in the traditional sense. It's mathematics. The Zulus attack continuously for the next 8 hours, not in single massive assaults, but in waves, sometimes hundreds of warriors, sometimes dozens. They come from the south, from the west, from the burning hospital. They never stop. The British defense is based on one principle: maintain fire superiority. A Martini Henry rifle fires 1 round per loading cycle. The cycle takes roughly 6 seconds for a trained soldier. Open the breech, 1 second. Eject the spent cartridge, automatic with breech opening. Insert a new cartridge, 2 seconds. Close the breech, 1 second. Aim and fire, 2 seconds. That's 10 rounds per minute per rifle. With 139 soldiers rotating on the firing line, the compound can theoretically generate 1,390 rounds per minute. But that's theoretical. In practice, soldiers get tired, barrels overheat, rifles jam, men need water, need to rest, need ammunition resupply. The actual sustained rate of fire is closer to 5 to 7 rounds per minute per man. Still, that's 700 to 1,000 rounds per minute pouring into every Zulu assault. The Zulus are brave to the point of recklessness. Warriors run directly into rifle fire, shields raised, trying to close the distance. They reach the barricades. They climb onto piles of their own dead to get over the mealie bags. They grab rifle barrels. They throw spears over the walls. And the British keep shooting them. The smoke is so thick that soldiers can barely see. Black powder rifles produce enormous clouds of white smoke with every shot. After minutes of sustained fire, the barricade is obscured by a fog of gun smoke. Soldiers fire into the smoke at point-blank range, not seeing targets, but knowing they're there, because spears keep coming over the wall. Ammunition consumption is staggering. Each soldier starts with 70 rounds. Within the first hour, most have fired all of them. Runners bring more ammunition from the storehouse. Cartridge boxes are emptied, refilled, emptied again. By 8 p.m., the defenders have fired over 20,000 rounds. The Zulus shift tactics. Instead of massed frontal assaults, they use cover, rocks, bushes, the terrain, to approach closer before rushing the walls. They concentrate on specific sections, trying to achieve local superiority and break through at one point. It almost works. Around 9 p.m., a group of warriors breaches the wall near the northwest corner. They're over the barricade, inside the compound, spears and shields against bayonets. The fighting is hand to hand. Soldiers from the reserve rush to the breach. Corporal William Allen and Frederick Hitch shoot the first warriors through the gap, then use bayonets on the next ones. Bromhead is there, sword drawn, fighting alongside his men. Chard grabs a rifle and fires point blank into the mass of warriors trying to widen the breach. The breach is sealed. Bodies are piled 4 deep. The defenders repair the gap with mealie bags while others maintain fire on the Zulus pulling back. This pattern repeats throughout the night. Attack, repulse, repair. Attack, repulse, repair. The Zulus probe every section of the perimeter, looking for weakness. The British adapt, shifting defenders to threatened areas, maintaining fire, holding the walls. Around midnight, the intensity decreases. The Zulus are exhausted. They've been marching and fighting for 18 hours. Their ammunition for captured British rifles is gone. Their leaders are dead or wounded. The Zulus pull back to the hills and rest. The British don't rest. They repair the walls. They redistribute ammunition. They care for wounded. They wait for the next attack. It comes at 2 a.m. and again at 4 a.m., but the assaults are weaker now, less coordinated. The Zulus are spent. At 5 a.m., January 23rd, the Zulus withdraw. The battle is over.
First light reveals a scene of devastation. Bodies are piled against the mealie bag walls, some places 3 and 4 deep. Zulu dead are scattered across the compound and for hundreds of yards in every direction. The exact count is never established, but estimates range from 350 to 500 Zulu warriors killed, with hundreds more wounded. British casualties, 17 dead, 15 wounded. Most of the dead are from the hospital. The wounded are mostly from the final hand-to-hand fighting at the walls. The defenders are beyond exhausted. Many collapse where they stand. They haven't slept in over 24 hours. They've fired thousands of rounds. They've fought in hand-to-hand combat. They're deaf from rifle fire. Their hands are blistered from hot rifle barrels. Their throats are raw from smoke and thirst. But they're alive, and they held. At 8 a.m., the relief column arrives, Lord Chelmsford with the remnants of his force returning from Isandlwana. Chelmsford expected to find Rorke's Drift destroyed and the garrison massacred. Instead, he finds the mission station intact, the British flag still flying, and 139 soldiers standing on the walls. When Chelmsford sees the Zulu dead piled around the perimeter, he understands what happened here. This wasn't just a successful defense. This was a miracle of sustained firepower and discipline against overwhelming odds. The defenders are too tired to cheer. They just watch as the relief column enters the compound, looking at the faces of men who thought they were riding to recover bodies, not rescue survivors. The Battle of Rorke's Drift became legendary almost immediately. In Britain, reeling from the disaster at Isandlwana, Rorke's Drift was a desperately needed victory. The press celebrated it. Artists painted it. It became the symbol of British courage against impossible odds. 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded, more than any single engagement in British military history. Lieutenant Chard received one. So did Lieutenant Bromhead. Private Henry Hook for his defense of the hospital. Surgeon Reynolds for evacuating patients under fire. Corporal Allen, and others. The Zulus withdrew from the area. Prince Dabulamanzi's decision to attack Rorke's Drift, disobeying King Cetshwayo's orders, cost him politically. The losses were significant, and the attack achieved nothing strategically. Rorke's Drift remained in British hands. The war continued. But for the men who fought there, the battle's significance was personal and immediate. They survived because they made the right decisions at every critical moment. Chard's decision to fortify instead of flee, Dalton's suggestion of an inner defensive line, the soldiers' discipline in maintaining fire, the hospital defenders' desperate room-by-room fighting retreat. Each decision made under extreme stress with incomplete information turned out to be correct. The mathematics of the defense were brutal but clear. 150 rifles firing 10 rounds per minute generate more firepower than 4,000 warriors with spears can overcome, as long as the defenders maintain discipline and ammunition doesn't run out. But mathematics don't account for human factors: courage, fatigue, fear. The Zulu warriors were incredibly brave. They charged into rifle fire repeatedly, knowing they would die. The British soldiers held their positions despite being outnumbered 26-1, knowing that if the walls broke, they'd all be killed. The battle was decided by tiny margins. If the Zulus had attacked earlier, before the walls were built, if ammunition had run out, if the hospital had been overrun before patients were evacuated, if one more breach had succeeded in the hand-to-hand fighting. Any of those factors changes, and Rorke's Drift becomes another Isandlwana, a massacre of British forces by Zulu warriors.
Rorke's Drift is often taught as a story of heroism, and it is, but it's also a story about defensive engineering and the mathematics of sustained fire. Chard wasn't a battlefield commander, he was an engineer. His expertise was in building things, bridges, fortifications, structures. When faced with an impossible military situation, he didn't think like a soldier, he thought like an engineer. Problem: 150 men need to stop 4,000 warriors. Solution: build walls that force the attackers to expose themselves while climbing. Create positions where defenders can maintain sustained fire. Design a fallback line in case the outer defenses fail. It's not glamorous, it's not clever tactics or brilliant maneuvers. It's basic defensive engineering combined with disciplined rifle fire. But it worked. The lesson of Rorke's Drift is that sometimes survival isn't about heroic charges or brilliant strategy. Sometimes it's about building a 4-foot wall out of corn sacks, maintaining fire discipline, and refusing to panic when the odds are 26-1 against you. Sometimes the difference between annihilation and survival is having an engineer in command who knows how to stack sandbags and a company of soldiers willing to hold the line. The British won at Rorke's Drift not because they were braver than the Zulus. The Zulus' courage was extraordinary. They won because they built a fortress out of biscuit boxes and mealie bags, and because 150 men with rifles fired 20,000 rounds over 12 hours without breaking. That's the real miracle of Rorke's Drift. Not that they survived, but that a hastily constructed wall of corn sacks, defended by exhausted soldiers firing bolt-action rifles, held against 4,000 warriors for an entire night. You did the math, you built the walls, you held the line, and when dawn came, you were still standing.